Well, good morning, everyone. I hope you realize we are in the same church building here. There's been a lot of changes here lately. Some of you might be confused. I know at our age we get confused real easy. Everybody got their fireworks bought up, ready for the big 4th? No? Oh, wow. You can tell this is the older class. Well, let's stand. We'll get started off singing At the Cross this morning. It's hymn number 79, and then we'll receive the morning offering. Alas, and did my Savior bleed, and did my Sovereign die? Would he devote that sacred head for such a worm as I? At the cross where I first saw the light, and the burden of my heart rolled away. It was there by faith I received my sight, and now I am happy all the day. Was it for crimes that I have done he groaned upon the tree? Amazing pity, grace unknown, and love beyond degree. At the cross where I first saw the light, and the burden of my heart rolled away. It was there by faith I received my sight, and now I am happy all the day. Well, might the sun in darkness hide, and shut his glories in, when Christ the mighty Maker died for man the creature's sin. At the cross where I first saw the light, and the burden of my heart rolled away. It was there by faith I received my sight, and now I am happy all the day. But drops of grief can ne'er repay the debt of love I owe. Here, Lord, I give myself away, 'tis all that I can do. At the cross where I first saw the light, and the burden of my heart rolled away. It was there by faith I received my sight, and now I am happy all the day. All right, well, let's go to the Lord in prayer. Brother Wally, would you put our prayer this morning, brother? Amen.
All righty, welcome back. Seems like we were just here last Sunday.
Yeah, seems so.
Yeah, yep. Boy, the time goes by so fast. It's just absolutely amazing. It really is. You know, we say that and it almost becomes a cliche, but when you watch the way it ticks away here when you get older, it's really kind of odd. I'll be glad when the Lord comes back and we have this over with.
Amen.
Anyway, Gary mentioned something there about this being the older crowd. Now, I mention that a lot too. I'll say, yep, we're the older folks, and there's no denying that. But we're supposed to be the wiser crowd too. And when I want you folks to know that when I say we're the older crowd, I mean that with a sincere, contrite heart, and I say it because I love you. Now, Gary, on the other hand, the way he just said that didn't come across so good to me. So even sitting down here, and I might be the youngest of the oldest people in here. I'm 62. Is there anybody less than? Well, I know you are, Patty. You're not even supposed to be in here. You should be in a different. Oh, that's right. So how old are you? Wait. Okay. Who? You're 60. Okay. So I'm not the youngest, oldest person in here. But anyway, boy. Oh, Kim up there. How old are you? 50? 54. Did I? Yeah. So there's several people in here that aren't even supposed to be in this room right now. It's supposed to be the over 60 crowd. But you know what? There is the Bible talks about how the older women are supposed to help out the younger women and all that stuff, older men. So we do have this distinct advantage here in that we're supposed to be the oldest, the wisest, the most experienced in a lot of cases. It's interesting to me, there are some of you guys have been in this church for maybe longer than I've been alive even. And actually, you know, when you think about that, it's pretty cool that someone would have that kind of faith and that kind of commitment to this. And what that does when you look at that is it just really solidifies the fact that we have this right. There's not, you don't commit yourself for that many years to a lie for certain. And, certainly the disciples wouldn't have gone through what they went through for a lie when Jesus rose from the dead. I was listening to or reading a thing this morning, as a matter of fact. I'm rereading that Lee Strobel book right now, The Case for Christianity and all that. But he published a little thing about the case for Easter. And it was just talking about the resurrection. And, the Bible says, Apostle Paul, I think he wrote this, where he says, if Christ hadn't risen from the dead, our faith is in vain. We're still in our sins. There's none of this means anything if it wasn't for that resurrection. And one of the things he says in there was he mentions about the fact that there was never an autopsy performed on Jesus because there was never a body, right? The body's still out there, alive and well today. And so there wasn't any of that done. And the empty tomb, when you just think about that and the miracle about that, folks, it is worth us older folks to tell as many younger people about that as we can, and to tell anybody you run across. I know we taught that class, and here we had that thing about witnessing for people and everything, and I'll tell you, I don't think there's anything more important, particularly in the day and age that we live in right now, with the condition of this country of ours, the condition of this world that we live in right now, that we just need to tell people about Jesus. And so, anyhow, anybody have any questions, comments, concerns from last week? We're probably not gonna get through number 9 here still today. We might get really near the end, but what do you have?
I have a question. It's not about the lesson. How's Jackie Phillips doing? I haven't heard anything.
I hadn't heard anything either. Jackie Phillips, anybody know?
Last we heard was he was home.
Okay.
So he's got to be better.
Yeah. I didn't even see anything about Jack. What's going on with?
He had pneumonia.
Okay. I guess I did see that. Come to think of it. Okay, but I hadn't heard anything other than it sounds like he's home now and all that stuff. So, all right, good. Anybody else have anything? Anybody come up with anything out of your Bible this week that was exciting? Miss Linda told us last week she read the book of James. Did you read any more this week?
I read most of it again.
Most of it again. Okay. Yeah, that's good. There's a lot of stuff in there that sometimes I have to.
So she had to reread it.
What's that now?
She already forgot it, so she had
Now, see what I mean about that? I was gonna say, yeah, there's a lot of things in the book of James that you have to reread and reread and reread. Sometimes what I have to do is I reread some of this stuff so many times, and it just forces me to get in line with what it's saying, because some of it I just don't want to do. In my faith, I still run across things that I just look at the Bible and I go, I don't want to comply. I don't like that. I don't like what that Bible says about that. I don't like it. That's just a part of this sanctification process that you go through. So anyway, I know you don't have to reread it, Linda, because you forgot it already, like Gary says. I know it's just a matter of you just love the Lord. Some of us are more spiritual than others, and so we. Anyway, you know what we're talking about right now is we're talking about stewarding friendships, and all of this kind of banter like that is all part of being friends with Christian people, and you love to be around people that you can have a relationship like that with without fear of them giving you the finger and walking off after they punch you in the mouth or something, right? Yes, sir?
I just think isn't that funny that the more you get to know a person, and like them and stuff, we start cutting them.
Oh yeah.
Why is that?
That's a good question. Why is that? And here I think I might know the answer to that. As you get to be closer and closer to a person, you start getting this heart friendship that we talk about in this lesson here. You know, I don't want to say you know what you can get away with, but you know that there's really probably not a whole lot of boundaries there. And so it's fun. I mean, some of the best friends that I've had, secular or spiritual Christian best friends, we just have a good time ribbing each other. And that's good, but you do it in loving kindness. You do it to and there's always got to be some kind of an avenue there to a good lesson that you can teach somebody. In this lesson, as a matter of fact, somewhere in here, I can't remember exactly how far down the thing it is, but it talks about iron sharpens iron, right? Right here, Proverbs 27:17, iron sharpeneth iron, so a man sharpeneth the countenance of his friend. Well, you can do that a whole bunch of different ways, and I'll tell you, in my experience with friendships, it has been borne out that just the ribbing, just goofing off with people, and that kind of stuff, like saying, hey, that was, what you just did there, that was really crazy, man, and this, all that, and the other thing, and you get close like that to somebody, there is some valuable lesson, and there'll always be some kind of understanding that comes up between those people there that helps you in your Christian faith. And so I think that's why we do it. You get close to people, you finally you would never go up and just totally disparage some person that you just met. But you might do that to a Christian friend, somebody you've been going to church with for 25 years or something like that. There might be a little bit of that back and forth bantering going on. And to me, I look at that and I think it's healthy. I think it's good to have a relationship like that with somebody. Sometimes it might not be so great to have that kind of relationship with your wife, husbands, or your husband's wives. And so it can get out of hand at some level. So you got to kind of watch it just a little bit there. So, anyways, we're gonna go on and get started up here with this. And where we ended up last week was we were on number 3 here, and it is talking about stewarding with testimony. Okay, and that's where we're going to start. And that's going to be your first little thing that we're going to write in. If you hadn't already done it, I think last week I said go ahead and write those in so we don't have to mess with it this week. But we'll have a word of prayer and then we'll get started up here. Father, we thank you for the time that you've given us here this morning. We thank you for the levity that we're able to have among the class here, Lord. We thank you that all of us have reached the ages that we're at right now, Father. And we just ask that you would give us wisdom as we develop in our Christian faith, and that we would encourage each other, and that there would be a good testimony among us for the younger people in this church. And so we thank you for the time again. We love you and we praise you in Christ's name. So, steward with testimony. So what does that have to do with? It talks about, what we're going to do. We talk about our testimony. It's been said that sometimes the best preaching you can do is to just keep your mouth shut and live your life the way it's supposed to be lived out as far as the Christian walk is concerned. And there's a whole level of that. I mean, you could sit up here and speak about testimonies and how to handle them and how you go about creating these testimonies. You could do that for the next 3 or 4 weeks probably without too much trouble. But we're gonna go through and we're just gonna talk about some very salient points about how we're gonna go about doing that here. It says in the lesson here, it says, with whom exactly does God want us to have friendships? All right, and that's a question, and then there's an answer. Our closest friends, those whom we give entrance into our heart and the intimate parts of our soul, should be people who help us to be better Christians. They should have a sterling testimony and live a stellar example. So there's a pretty good definition there of how we should choose our friends. And most of the time in a church house like this, you could probably be friends with just about anybody in here, and it might fulfill some aspects of that. But there's a certain level of humanity there too that you have to consider. You know, you have to have some kind of maybe a common interest or something, even outside of our faith, a common interest with somebody that you might be drawn to them. That, you know, people are mechanics, people are pilots, people are fishermen, people are this, that, and the other thing, and those kind of things can build a bond there. And God's will for that then would be that bond, maybe that friendship, maybe that first attraction that you have doesn't have anything to do with Christianity or your faith, but that first attraction would lead to this iron sharpening iron, that in any case here, it would edify the other Christians and that we would be a good example to them there. So here's a quote from Henry Ford. He says, "My best friend is the one who brings out the best in me." Boy, that's a good saying, and those are the kind of people that you want to be around. I've told you all the story about the guys that I hung around with in high school, where my grades finally got better, and I finally, got to where I actually learned something when I was in school, and it went a long way towards my development as far as that was concerned. It was because of the people that I these guys brought out the best in me, so it lived right up to this Henry Ford quote here. We're privileged if we have friends who motivate us to growth and godliness. You know, you could just say that about anything. Anybody, whether you're a Christian or not, if you have a friend that motivates you instead of tearing you down and helps you to develop into a better person on every level that you have, that's a good friend to have. I tell people often that your really, really, really close friends, you can probably count them on maybe 3 or 4 fingers of one hand. I've got hundreds of acquaintances. If I looked in my list of contacts on my cell phone right now, it's probably in the thousands of people that I know and all that stuff. But boy, there's not very many of those friends that in a time of need I can make a phone call to and say, look, I really need some help here with this. And you know, if you guys have those thousands of acquaintances like that and everything, take an analysis of it sometime. Take a stock on it and just see how many of those people you could really dial up at 3 o'clock in the morning when you need something, and see how many of them would come to your aid. You know, in a lot of cases, that's not a very good, not a good sized number. As a matter of fact, later on in the lesson here, it talks about this lady that committed suicide while 1,082 of her friend, what is the friend? That's not friend. What is it? Facebook, yeah. What were you followers on Facebook, right? They're all standing around watching this, and some of them even encouraged her to do it. And boy, I don't think that kind of fits in line with this Henry Ford quote here. You know, that's not really how that should work. We should strive to be that, and we should strive to be. Here, let me reread this because this is going to sound really bad if I say it right after what I just said. We are privileged if we have friends who motivate us to growth and godliness, and we should strive to be that kind of friend for others. Our goal, even as we value truth and guard against anger and bitterness, should be to bring spiritual vitality and strength to our friends' lives. So that's really what God says our goal should be. We should be trying to encourage and edify the other saints among us here. Then it goes on here to say, as a Christian, your closest friends should ideally be those with whom the Lord has knit your heart through spiritual fellowship and ministry. Yeah, and we do a lot of that in this church. This church is pretty, it's different. It's different than the other churches that Patty and I have been members of. We haven't been to, numerous other churches. We have moved to different cities. I think we've been members of 1, 2, maybe 3. This might be the 4th church that we've been members at, and it's always been because of a move. And the church that we find to go to has been like number one on the checklist. We got to make sure that we have a church to go to. And I'll tell you what, Patty and I, when we came out here to this church, we had the blessing of meeting the Pollocks for the first time. They're the reasons why we're at this church. And it was just, I might have even told the story. It was just God ordained the way that this whole thing fell into place. And what happened, the first church service, who we met, the guy that was preaching here on a revival, Sam Davidson, we'd known that man for a long time. Matter of fact, when we came up to say hi to him, he looked at us like, where in the world? You guys are from Cleveland, Ohio. You're not supposed to be down here in Texas. But anyway, it was just a blessing, just God ordained. And you know, the first time that we met you folks, and just how friendly you guys were, and just helpful and encouraging and everything like that, I'll never ever forget that. It was a beautiful thing, and it was exactly the way Christian fellowship is supposed to work out, you know. And then we came to the church and we met the rest of you, and it's just kind of been downhill ever since. Just kidding. Yeah, you were the highlight. Yeah, that's exactly right. Pastor Webster, we never even got to hear him preach, I don't think, until it was probably the following week, because there was a revival going on, and Sam Davidson was preaching there. And then we left. We were gone away from here for a pretty good time before we ever got moved back here. But we knew that we were going to come to this church, and this was going to be our church home down here in Bridgeport, Texas. So this church is a shining example of how this place is supposed to work. It's strange in its environment because it is such a close-knit group of people, and I'm convinced everybody in this church loves the Lord. And I think that there's probably not anybody in this church, and I can tell you right now, there's not anybody in this church that couldn't call Patty and I and get help immediately for anything that you need. And I kind of feel the same way about how this goes. And this is what this whole lesson is all about here, you know. So in addition to these heart-to-heart friendships, all throughout your community are a host of people for you to attempt to befriend in a different sense. These would be relationships you purposely invest in with the goal of leading people to Christ. They include your neighbors, business people, public servants, and others with whom the Lord has crossed your path. That's an interesting way to put that there, because it is God who makes people cross our path, because he knows what those people need. And it might be that there's no interaction whatsoever. You might run across somebody there that you witness to, or tell them about Jesus, or tell them about this church that you go to, and that conversation might last 30 seconds, and that be the end of it. You may never talk to that person again about anything. You just never know. But it is God that puts these people in our path, so we have a responsibility to make sure that we tell them our goal here is to lead people to Christ. That's what we're supposed to be doing. And then the next thing here in the lesson is, let's see, it's number 3A, pure in our example. And that's two little things you have to write out in your thing there on, I don't know what page it is of this little handout here. Steward with testimony, and then A, pure in our example. And here's what this talks about. And then we're going to look into the book of James here again for just a minute. The distinction between these two types of friendships is important for us to understand. God doesn't call us to friendship with the world. In actuality, he compares Christians who are looking for the world's acceptance and approval to an unfaithful spouse. He says that when we seek friendship with the world, we deny our loyalty to Christ. Yeah, you can't serve two masters. You can't be going down one path. You can't have one foot in the world and the other foot in your faith over here, right? And by the way, having your foot in the faith is the right side of the equation. That's the one that you want to be on, because this all comes to an end one of these days. And here's what it says in the book of James, chapter 4, verse 4. It says, "Ye adulterers and adulteresses, know ye not that friendship of the world is enmity with God? Whosoever therefore will be a friend of the world is the enemy of God." There's really, grand scheme of things, 10,000 years down the road from now, there's not anything in this world that makes any difference, period. There's not anything here that you need to invest your time, your talents, your energies, your money. There's not any of that stuff there that you're going to carry out of here with you when it's over with for you. So what God is saying here, particularly through this book, is if you're friendly with this world here, you're really an enemy of God. We're supposed to live our life out so that we're living it for Christ, to further the kingdom, to drag as many people to heaven as we possibly can when we're in our existence here, and that's really what we're supposed to be doing. Of course, this verse does not mean we should not be friendly with people who do not know Christ. On the contrary, Jesus himself came to seek and to save the lost. Yeah, isn't that the truth there? So I'm glad I was, before I came to know Christ as my Savior, I was about as far away from God and Christ as you could possibly get. And it wasn't that I denied any of that. It was that I just didn't care about it. I had other things in this world that I wanted to do that were important to me, and things that I thought were more important than going to church or studying a Bible or any of this kind of stuff. And it wasn't until after we had our first child that Patty and I decided that, we ought to be raising our kids up in some kind of I remember the word we used was some kind of a religion, and clearly that's not the right thing. You need to raise your kids up and your family and yourself up in a relationship, a personal relationship with Christ. And so that's how we came to know it, and it's become the most important thing in our lives now. It's just that simple, and has been since 1998. We don't always operate like that. Somebody looking in from a sideline someday might say, that guy doesn't look like he's got Christ on his mind at all right now, But the fact of the matter is that it is important, and it is the way that God says that we're supposed to work our lives around. I think about this James 4:4, enmity with God if you're committed to this world, and boy, you don't want to be like that.
Amen.
All right. I'm glad that when I was in the condition that I was, there were Christian people that bothered telling me about Christ, that took time out of their day, took time out of important aspects of what were going on at that time that somebody took time to witness and tell me. And our salvation came through gospel tracts. I mean, there were 3 very distinct times that happened where somebody took a tract and told me about it. Read it. Here's what you need to know about and everything. And you guys have heard that story before. In Luke 19:10, it reads like this: "For the Son of Man has come to seek and to save that which was lost." And then goes on here, it says that he associated with and graciously touched those who needed salvation. This is Jesus. We most definitely should not isolate ourselves from lost people, but neither should we seek their close friendship or make them the ones with whom we share soul fellowship. Yeah, those soul fellowship things, those are reserved to fellow Christians. That's where you're supposed to have your relationship, where you talk about very, very deep things. I've got male friends of mine that I've talked to about things in my heart, about my spirituality, about my marriage, about my kids and everything, that I've never even talked to Patty about, because there's a different level of relationship that you have. Sometimes men need to talk to a man that understands the scripture, that can come in here and give you sound advice about how you should handle things. Same with women. You ladies, you need to have some close women friends there that you can talk about the scripture and have some encouragement about, and all this sort of thing. And this is what this whole thing is all about here. The whole lesson is about this. So here's a question. Has God given you relationships with unsaved neighbors, co-workers, teachers, coaches, or family? Yeah, I think everybody. We all have that. If you go to the grocery store, God is going to put somebody in your path there that you are going to bump into or something. We have jobs that we go to. We have, we got family members that aren't saved and all this stuff. And so there's a question. Here's what you're supposed to do. Cultivate those relationships and steward them as a trust from God to be faithful witness for Him. but develop your closest friendships, those relationships that you can lean on for spiritual strength with those who are walking in the same spiritual direction that you're going. So that brings to mind something right here, and something that kind of happened to me this past week that I'm not going to elaborate on because I don't want to mention anybody's names. The names have been changed to protect the innocent and all this stuff, right? But it talks about here that are going in the same spiritual direction. This world of ours right now will tell you that there's 1,000 different spiritual directions you can go, and that we all get to the same God. We're all worshiping the same God. You know, you don't have to be a born-again Christian, Jeff. You don't have to trust Christ as your Savior. I go over to this church, and this is what we do, and I do the sacraments, and I do this, and my priest says this, and all these different things, and I'm going to get to the same God that you're going to get to. Well, you know what? That's not what my Bible says. My Bible says there's one way to get to God, and that's through knowing Christ as your personal Lord and Savior. And so that's what I'm operating on. That's the path that I'm going down. So same spiritual direction. You know, you can talk to people, and I run into this a lot because I tend to witness to people. I tell everybody that I run across, for the most part, about Jesus. And hey, do you know him as your Savior? Do you know this, that, and the other thing? So there was a question came up. I asked this particular person. I said, are you born again? Because this particular person seemed like they had answers, and that they knew Bible things and all this kind of stuff. And it turned out they weren't even familiar with that question. I pointed out some things that they might be interested in looking at, and the thing was, I'm going to ask my priest if I can even look at this material or not. And so that is see, in other words, that might be a friendship I would want to develop, but I don't want to go down that path because it's a different spiritual direction. You got to be careful. There are people that can talk you into them, you know, you thinking that, yeah, they're on the same path that I am, and you know, a year down the road you find out that really what they're doing is not the same path that we're supposed to be on here. So anyway, keep that in mind. Same spiritual direction that you're going. These are friendships that will draw you closer to the Savior rather than pulling you away from him. Yeah, we don't want people in our lives that are going to start making us wonder if what we're doing here is correct or not. The Bible has the answer for all those kind of things. You know, you get away from it, flee the devil, or you know, turn against the devil and he'll get away from you, and all these sort of things. But he is out there in every kind of form that you can think of. The wolf in sheep's clothing comes to mind, and all these different religious things, all these different sects, you know, the Jehovah's Witness, the Mormons, all these different people that come and, you know, knock on your door. Here, let me tell you all about Jesus. You know, the Bible says don't even entertain those folks. Don't invite them in for a cup of coffee so that they can, you know, so that you can tell them about Jesus. You just, you know, basically we would say, look, you're wrong about this. You got to read the Bible. Here's what the Bible says about this and everything. Have a great day. And I guess I admire their commitment to their faith. You know, there's definitely a commitment there. These guys walking around all dressed in their suit and ties when it's 100 degrees outside, and they're knocking on doors carrying their briefcase full of the, you know, the Awake and the Lighthouse or whatever it is, those little pamphlets that they pass out to people and all this stuff, which those things are just filled with nonsense. I mean, it's stuff when you go and you look at it from the Bible. So you got to be very, very careful about this same spiritual direction thing. Even as friendship with the world is a dangerous proposition, so friendship with God is the highest aspiration. In fact, it is foundational to all other Christian relationships. Simply put, horizontal relationships require strong vertical support. You got to have God in your life if you want to have good horizontal, good human relations, particularly on a spiritual level here with people. The father of the Jewish people, Abraham, had a relationship so close with God, so relevant to his daily life, so noticeable that in his defining factor, he had the testimony that he was God's friend. Boy, wouldn't that be a cool testimony to have? Sometimes I wonder if I'm God's friend or God's enemy. I think in a lot of cases I'm probably more God's enemy than I am his friend in some of the things that I do, you know. That's not embarrassing for me to say that up here. Well, maybe it is a little embarrassing for me to say that, but I see several people shaking their heads, so I know I'm in good company. See, we all fall short of the glory of God. We all have our stumbling blocks. But man, we're talking about our testimonies here and how we handle it around unsaved people. I don't ever want to get to heaven, and when I'm at the judgment seat, God saying, hey, remember when you did this or this or this? That's why those 5 people aren't Christians now, Jeff, because of something that you did. You don't want to have that. It's your testimony. You got to keep your testimony intact here. All right. James 2:23 reads like this concerning what we just talked about here. And the scripture was fulfilled which saith, Abraham believed God, and it was imputed unto him for righteousness, and he was called the friend of God. You know, back in the book of Hebrews, which we studied here not all that long ago, we went through all this stuff, and every line in there was, by faith, so-and-so did this. By faith, so-and-so did that. By faith, this lady did it. By faith, by faith, by faith. And a friend of mine told me one time, he says, you know, you can read that like this. You could, instead of saying by faith, just kind of get it in your mind like this. By believing what God said, so-and-so did this, so-and-so did that. By believing what God said. And that's what happened here. He was, that Abraham believed God, and it was imputed in him for righteousness and was called the friend of God. As we seek to apply God's principles in stewarding friendships, we are wise to keep our relationships with the Lord as our ultimate priority. Only as our friendship with God is flourishing can our human relationships, and he goes on to say what they are here, marriage, dating, friendships, even business, be as healthy as they should be. Yep, having your life centered around Christ as your priority is just going to be good for all these other things that you're trying to get done. Persistent in edifying. Now we're on item number B here. Persistent in edifying are the 2 things you sign up or you write in your blank here. Persistent in edifying. As we value the truth, conquer anger, and choose forgiveness, we grow into the position to meet one of the greatest needs of any person, encouragement. So listen, let's look at those 3 things he mentions here in the lesson. You have to value truth. He says then you conquer anger. Boy, that can be tough to do. There's books and books and books written about this, both secular and spiritual. This little thing that we teach down at the jailhouse every Tuesday is a book. I guess it's probably about 3/8 of an inch big. It's 8.5 by 11 sheets, and it's all about conquering anger and all the scripture that goes along with it and everything. And there are some interesting discussions and some interesting talks that go on in a jailhouse about people being angry about stuff. It's some of them are there in the jailhouse because they got angry about something and didn't go down the right path. They didn't handle it in a God-honoring way. They handled it in a dishonoring way, and now they're in the jail over there. Conquer anger and choose forgiveness. We talked about that last week a little bit, was choosing forgiveness. And yep, it's easy to choose to forgive, but you got to kind of also put the thing out of your mind a little bit. It's hard to forget what people do to you. But you know, God wants us to separate those things. He wants you to forgive people, and he wants you to move on, is what you try to do. So then it says, take care of those 3 things there. The truth, understanding the truth, conquering anger, and forgiveness. We grow into the position to meet one of the greatest needs of any person, encouragement. And if you have those other 3 things in your life, it gets to be very difficult for you to encourage other people in their faith and what you need to be doing with them here. Ephesians 4:29 speaks to this. It says, let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to the use of edifying, that it may minister grace unto the hearers. All right. And then in the lesson here, he talks about a few of the words that are in that verse right there. And the first one that he kind of defines is the word corrupt. Let no corrupt communication. And corrupt is translated from the Greek word sapros, which means rotten, putrefied, corrupted by one, and no longer fit for use. Corrupt communication is just plain incompatible with edifying communication. If we're going to be encouraging in our friendships, we must make the conscious choice to guard our tongues. This includes not only gossip and backbiting, but any off-color speech. Yeah, you got to watch what you're saying when you're talking to people about different things. Book of James talks all about this stuff, this tongue of ours, what we say, what we do. Man, you can cut to the quick with something that you say to somebody, and it's talking about this corrupt communication. You just can't have that. Well, what kind of corrupts the communication is not understanding the truth about things, being angry about stuff. We talked a pretty good amount last week about this issue about saying something to somebody in anger where you're not doing it with loving kindness. All right, and then the whole issue of not forgiving somebody. Then the next word that he has in here is, it says that they may minister grace unto the hearers. Minister means to give something to someone, of one own's accord, to give one something to his advantage, to bestow a gift. So that's what the word minister means, particularly used in this context here in this verse. So if you're really interested in ministering to people, helping them, encouraging them in their faith, edifying them in what we're talking about concerning our Christianity here, then this is how you have to do it. You got to get rid of the anger. You got to understand the truth, and you have to be able to forgive people about things. All right. Colossians 4:6, another verse along this same lines here. Let your speech be always with grace, seasoned with salt, that ye may know how ye ought to answer every man. Yeah, boy. Sometimes the way I answer men, it doesn't line up at all with that. You know, and you blow it. You gotta apologize. You gotta come out here and you gotta tell people you're sorry about things, and you gotta do it sincerely. You have to mean it when you say something. Strengthening another soul in grace is one of the most vital opportunities and responsibilities of true friend. Here's that word responsibility comes up again. Sometimes it's difficult for us to understand that there really are responsibilities to our faith here. Yeah, it's a free gift of God, our salvation and everything, but it does come with some things that you have to discern what you're supposed to be doing and responsibilities about it here. Determine to give encouragement in every relationship. And then here we talk about this Proverbs 27:17. Iron sharpeneth iron, so a man sharpeneth the countenance of his friend. And then Proverbs 17:17 says this, and we've already read this. We read this maybe last week or 2 weeks ago. A friend loveth at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. Yep, true friend, thick and thin. Sometimes your brothers, and I mentioned a brother that I have that I don't ever speak to. I don't hardly ever have any interaction with the brother that's just one brother up from me, but Brother Tim. I just don't have any interaction with him hardly whatsoever. Anyways, a friend loveth at all times. A true, honest to goodness Christian friend loveth at all times. I've seen that in my life. I've done some things where I have needed to have some spiritual counseling. And boy, they just love you to death, and they hit you with some scripture, and you go, I wish you would just be quiet right now, because I don't. But it's good. It's all good. It works out. God works all these things together for good for them who are called according to his purpose. Listen to this quote by William Arthur Ward here. Flatter me, and I may not believe you. Criticize me, and I may not like you. Ignore me, and I may not forgive you. But listen to this. Encourage me, and I will not forget you. Wow. Yeah. I got an email from one of my other brothers the other day that was very encouraging to me. And they run, in their retirement years, they run a food tour thing that they do in Cincinnati, Ohio. You pay $50 a person or something like that. They take you around on a bus. You go to all these different restaurants. It's actually Patty and I have done that. Our family has done it. And you go to a bunch of places and sample food and all this. They tell you a big history about Cincinnati, Ohio, and all this kind of stuff. Well, a guy that I taught how to fly years and years ago ended up on one of those tours. And when they had my brother brother and sister-in-law's last name, they said, hey, are you related to Jeff Noyes? Yep, that's I think it was Laura was on the thing, my sister-in-law, and she says, yeah, that's my brother-in-law. And this guy said, yeah, he taught me how to fly years ago. And I kept in touch with that man for a little while, and then I lost track of him. I mean, we were talking 30 years ago now or something like that. So finally, he sent my sister-in-law a letter and says, yeah, you know, I've lost track of Jeff. I haven't talked to him in a long, long time, but I do want you to tell him this. And he went on about all his accomplishments in aviation and where he's at now. He's a high-level corporate pilot for Fifth Third Bank in Cincinnati, Ohio. He's got a bunch of different type ratings, very accomplished pilot. He's in all that stuff. And at the end of this thing, he says, this all started because of Jeff. Boy, that's a neat testimony. I want people in Christianity to say my faith all started because of Jeff or Patty or Gary and Brenda Pollock inviting us into a church, or Dave Moore and how he handles things, or Steve, or any of these things that come up. Jeff Bilby over at the way he runs his business is the reason why I got into this faith, why I seen something else about this and everything. Man, that's what you have to do. Encourage people, move them along and all that stuff. If you encourage me, I'll never forget you. I encouraged Kevin when he was learning how to fly. And he was just an easy guy to teach. He was about 1,000 times smarter than I'll ever be, so he's very easy to teach him. Anyway, William Arthur Ward. Patient, we're just about done. Anybody got any comments, concerns? We'll start with C next week here because I'm not going to have time to get through even the first paragraph of this thing here. So let's see. Today's the 30th. What will next Sunday be? What will the date next Sunday be? The 7th? Yeah, that makes sense. Tomorrow will be 1, won't it? Yep. All right. So 7/7 of 2024 is where we're going to start here. Patient in forgiving. Did you guys write that in your thing there? That's going to be the next thing there on item C. And then I guess next week we'll get through the conclusion. Yeah, we'll have about 3 or 4 pages next week to study, but we'll finish up number 9 next week, and then we're going to start on lesson number 10, stewarding the family. Yes, ma'am.
Did you say patient in forgiving?
Yes, patient in forgiving. And what it's going to talk about here and what we'll get started on, perhaps the most needed skill for every Christian is the ability to be a quick forgiver. When it comes to relationships, all of us are either scorekeepers or grace givers. Well, and then they talk about Peter. He was a scorekeeper. Peter, he always wanted to make sure the score was all even. Hey, I did this for you. I'm going to do that for you, and all this stuff. That's not what we're supposed to be. I don't keep score about anything. I try to go through my life and not ever do anything under the premise that somebody's going to be able to do something for me. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't ask for favors. I'll go out of my way to ask somebody to help me with something if I need help. I recognize my limitations and all kinds of things, and so when I need something done that I'm not qualified to do, I'll go, hey, can you help me with this? I'd be glad to pay. I'll be glad to do whatever. Most of the time, those things result in I don't have to pay for anything. They just do it because they're friendly and they're nice people and they do stuff for you, And I try to reciprocate that in what have you, but not on a level of, I've done 5 things for this guy and he hasn't done squat for me yet. I don't do it like that. And God says we're not supposed to be like that. We should be gracious about how we're doing here. So anyhow, thank you folks for your time today. I hope you're enjoying the lessons. I'm sure happy to be back up here at teaching the class. It's been great fun for me now. So anyway, we'll get out of here. It's 10:50. Father, thank you for the time that you've set aside here this morning. I just would ask that you'd be with the preacher today as he brings us a message. Help us to be mindful of what day it is tonight, or what week it's going to be here. 4th of July week here, Lord. Independence Day here in our great nation. Father, help us to be mindful of that tonight as we celebrate that at the evening service. We love you, thank you, and praise you in Christ's name. Amen.